and keep track of it so we can share it out with families when we finish. Good evening. My name is Mark Harris, and I'm the principal here at the middle school. I have with me Ms. Ward, who is the assistant principal here. Ms. Ward, for now, she's staying silent, but she can wave. Want to let you know she's going to be on paying attention to the chat as we go. So if there's something critical we need to address as we move through, she may stop us and add to that. Otherwise, she's going to share those with me at the end as we shift from the presentation component into a question and answer to try and address whatever it is you as parents have that you want to talk about. So first, to begin with, we'll kind of start through the presentation that Mrs. Hastings, one of our counselors, presented to your children when she went to the elementary school. And so let's move from there. First piece is she talked about registration. Has to do with the fact that, hey, they're about to shift from a teacher where they may be shifted once or twice in the day, maybe 3 times, but they're going to have 6 different classes. And that means a lot of different things. So, as parents, we have a couple of classes we consider to be core classes, and therefore they're all year. Those are language arts, as opposed to separating for reading and writing. It's all in one. For mathematics, for science, and for social studies. That's our sixth graders coming in, get those ones all year long. They will also have a required section of PE. That leaves 3 semesters. So 1 period for 1 term, 2 periods for the other term, where they can select electives. And that's a big piece as 6th graders start out. They have some choices to make, but we understand that they are testing the waters. They're trying to see where things work for them. So jumping forward from there, so here's a typical Bell schedule. The big piece that's highlighted in yellow is to point out that our students do have a grade level lunch. So 6th graders, you'll all be eating together. So if you have friends from the school that you're in at the moment that you don't see because you don't share any classes together, you still have the opportunity to come in and eat lunch together. We actually have tables in the lunchroom for 8 kids, 4 on each side. So we also let the kids, after the first few days of each quarter, to select the table they wish to stay at. And the 8 kids that are at that table have to stay the same. Part of that is still part of the leftovers from COVID, where we do contact tracing potentially. But those kids can sit anywhere on that table they like, as long as they are still together. So the other piece that goes with this schedule, we do have once a week that we do Wolfpack. It's a 30-minute advisory group. The kids will be with that same teacher or adult, because they might have somebody like myself or one of our counselors. They'll be with them for all 3 years. That person who is your child's Wolfpack teacher, they're going to be an advisor for you for the whole time, but they'll be also an advocate for your kids. So if you're not understanding something, or you want something, some information about school that you think somebody who knows your kid might be the best person to go find the information about, maybe it's the Wolfpack teacher. And we'll get to some of the pieces that they're working on in Wolfpack as we work our way through the presentation. The other part I would give you a heads up, this schedule, although it will be a 6 period day, and that part isn't going to change much. So the times might change. Due to COVID and the fact that we are an indoor school, all of our doors lock, and I'll point to that a little bit later here. Our students were stuck inside with masks on. And it was a bit awkward. So we made sure that we carved out some time. At the time, our superintendent asked us to make sure we gave kids at least a passing period's worth of time outside. Our staff here really did some learning and some thinking, and decided instead that during 2nd period, they would give them 10 minutes and do the same 5th period. So they had 2 10-minute breaks for masks. When we got to the point where, obviously, I don't have my mask on now, and neither do our kids, unless it's their own personal decision and choice, which we absolutely support here. But as we took them off, it was time to potentially put the mask breaks away. And what do we do now? The staff felt it was important that we be consistent, and they saw the value in the mental break that a mask break timeframe might continue to benefit our students if we kept it going. So through this year, we're going to do that. Our staff will have a conversation about what makes sense moving forward to meet the needs of our kids as we go on from here. And it'll probably be a conversation that we have on an annual basis at this point. One of those learnings we take away from COVID. Now, relative to the map, I don't know if you had a chance to see our school map, but there are some areas that your 6th grader is going to be in most of the time. The ones that are highlighted in yellow tend to be where most 6th grade classes are. The three all the way to the left are the gymnasium spaces they could be in, and that could be our large gym, our small gym connected to it, or our fitness room, which has pads down and sometimes serves as an indoor space that our PE teachers use. We, up to this point, have had up to three classes going in one period, so they need all three teaching spaces. You'll see that some of the electives are there. If you looked at the detail of the map, you might be able to make out that the choir is listed there, art is listed, so is band. And one of our primary sixth grade science teachers is also in that back row where the gym is. If you look at our tipped over E or whatever letter that is, the 800 hallway is actually where our core classes are. So we have math teachers, English teachers, and a social studies teacher who all located for sixth grade down that hall. Puts them pretty close proximity to their electives. We wanted our sixth graders to have to do the least amount of walking going from point A to point B. They also have a bathroom at the end of that hallway. So they've got access to most everything right in front of them there. We do have a couple of electives that are offered, and they happen to be down the 700 hall, which is where most of the time our seventh graders are working. We do have occasionally in two classrooms, eighth graders and seventh graders working in room 808 and 805. That's Mr. Gentry's room. They've been specially wired and set up for CTE, and that happened in the past. And so at this point, that would be too much cost and headache to move him. So he is amenable to working with sixth graders in the hall, and so far it's worked out pretty well this year. The other areas that are highlighted as you come to school, the best place probably if you're going to drop your kid off at school in the morning is our North Loop. It's that long drive right in front of the school where the gyms and everything else is. And if you look at my bad job with an electronic marker, the light blue color is usually the direction kids are coming from, that area where parents drop off, and they enter through the double sets of doors right on the side of the cafeteria. Our other kids are coming from the bus. They walk past the school where it says parking, and they come around the front and they come in with their classmates there. The area that's highlighted in kind of a bright pink by that blue area is if a kid is having breakfast with us, they are welcome to go in that door as soon as they arrive, starting at 7:45. Otherwise, we let everybody in the building at 8:05. So know that about it. Most of what happens in that area in the front is lots of kids have, do their social time, or they start with that piece with each other. I've had a couple of other areas. The one in green, if you're coming and you have an appointment, you need to see somebody, go ahead and work in the parking lot, and you come to that area where it's green. As I said before, if you looked at all those little green arrows, those are points of entry. We could come in. We do keep them all locked once the students are in classes. So we are trying to make sure this is a safe place and very controlled. Because we are able to keep our outside doors locked, our classroom teachers are able to keep their inside doors unlocked, if that's what they choose to do. And occasionally there are some moments in time where they may even put a wedge in the door and have the door open as they work with perhaps a colleague who's right next door or across the hall. As you look at the area and right next to that green area, it's the office area. The darker pink color is where I work out of there, and so does the secretary, who works primarily with parents around registration information and Skyward. The light pink is where kids come or parents come if they have an attendance issue. So if they need to check in because they're late. I will warn you, in the first 5 minutes, we just tell kids to get to class. So if somehow the traffic was a little bad and they're a couple minutes late, don't worry. We understand that. So do our teachers. And we're just going to send them on to their class as they come through either the double doors if they're still open, or through the parent entrance that's noted in green there. If they have an excused absence that they need to pre-approve, or they're handing in a note because they were at an appointment or a doctor's thing, they go to that same attendance location, and they'll be helped at that place. It's also a place to sign up to talk to your counselor. If you have a need, not an immediate need, but a need and you want to talk to somebody, you can also sign up with that attendance window. So that's one of the pieces to look forward to there. Our electives, got to let you know, we have a band and we've got a choir. And now those are ones that in the past have always been a year long, but part of our commitment is to what the kids need and the fact that middle school is an exploratory time period. So both of our exceptional instructors have agreed that if a kid realizes band is not the right fit, maybe they want to try choir instead, that semester they can make that transition either out of one or into one, and they would be welcomed with open arms. Semester for us means that we're going to go from September all the way to basically the end of January. So that's first semester. Second one goes February to June, just to keep that in the back of your mind. Art, both 1 and 2 are possible for sixth graders because they could take it both semesters if that's their choice. Drama, same circumstance. They could take 1 and 2. We have some environmental science. That's a new one for us. We have one of our teachers who wanted to offer an elective to kids in sixth grade, and their interest personally is environmental science. So we're offering that to kids for the very first time. Journeys Through Film is one that is just a year old, and it came from a similar idea where a teacher had a clever idea that they thought might intrigue and push kids to learning and thinking. And at the moment, our English department chair is the one who has taken over that class, and we'll see where that one goes from this point on. PE, of course, is the other component. Students can select a second term of PE as one of their electives if that's what they would so desire. We also have one that we call Success, and the target here is to try and help kids who might have any struggles or difficulties as they adapt and adjust to the secondary circumstances where it's quite different than the elementary setting, as I'm sure you as parents remember. I have your kids got a chance to see the kind of a sales pitch from the art teacher, band teacher, choir, and drama. And if anybody would like access to those, all they need to do is email me. I am at mharris@sequimschools.org, and we'd be happy to get you whichever one or all 4, if that's what you'd like to do as you're making a decision about what's the best choice for your kid in their first secondary experience. Going on from there, a little description, not so much a video to go with, but they could take that art 2 second right around, or the drama 2, as I mentioned before. And there your kids were shared a brief description of what the environmental science piece was. As I said, that's a brand new one for us, or Journeys Through Film, which is in its second year. Success, again, as I mentioned, it's kids who might be challenged by or have some things that they're working on or growing to do. Originally, this came out of our work with recognizing that some students, while having no difficulty with their behavior and their self-management, were struggling necessarily with self-advocacy and knowing how to speak to peers and even adults to get the help that they might need to be more capable in class and to deal with the new and different stresses that come with being in a secondary and a larger school setting. And for some kids, it has been a spot on thing and helped make them just what the title of the course says, a success while they're here at middle school. Got to talk to you about lunch and what we still call recess, although I'm not sure it's that. You can see that our lunchroom on the 2 side photos there. That's kind of what we're looking at. We've got double tables. Kids sit across from each other. 4 on each side is the target. Depending on the size of the class, that's what we're going to work with. Every kid is kept in the lunchroom for the first 15 minutes of time. I got to tell you, some of our middle schoolers can vacuum up a pizza and guzzle their milk pretty darn quick. It doesn't take some of them 15 minutes to eat it at all, but they do have to stay at their assigned table. Remember, it's self-assigned. And they get to just socialize with their friends while they finish their meal. Now, at the end of that 15 minutes, we invite the kids to pick up their mess, throw it in the garbage, and they have some choices. Some kids will choose to stay in the lunchroom. Sometimes it's weather related, sometimes it's just social related, and they stay in there. I have at least a couple of kids every lunch who stay inside because they and their buddy play a shared video game that their parents are aware of, and that's how they play together. Other kids choose to go outside, and we have Foursquare, which is always an entertaining piece for us because we have discovered very quickly that Gray Wolf and Helen Haller don't have the exact same rules for Foursquare. So we'll have to teach our new batch of kids what our rules are here at the middle school so that they'll know how to do that. The 4 basketball hoops that are in the corners of the display, those are also out there for kids to play. We'll teach them what we do when it comes to bump and how that game plays and which ones are for half court, which ones are for full court. We also have footballs to throw back and forth and sometimes a soccer ball out there to kick back and forth. So that's the other place. One more, and that's in the library. Sometimes our library is available because a class isn't going to be in there during that lunchtime period, and our librarian opens up the library for just sitting and reading. for checking out and returning books, or to potentially go in her room of requirement. That's from Harry Potter, for those of you who know that. If you didn't already know, Mrs. Lawson, who is our librarian, is a bit of a Harry Potter nut. So she has a room of requirement, and in that there are places to sit and there are some tables to play board games. So some of our kids choose that as what they do with the rest of their break time. Continuing through, we know that we live in Sequim, an awesome community, but there is not a lot of stuff for kids middle school age and older to do in our community. Our Boys and Girls Club is an awesome location. The YMCA is available. So you know, the YMCA in the past has granted to our 7th grade class free membership with a parent just signing the permission slip for the year to give them a chance to try it out. So we do have some good community partners that are trying their best to help, but we have kids with diverse interests. So we've got some clubs, and right now I'm thrilled to say we have something after school every day of the week. 5 days a week, we've got something going on. There's the Harry Potter Club, as I mentioned, that's Mrs. Lawson's pet project. Fly fishing is offered by one of our teachers who happens to be a master fly fisherman, and thought it'd be interesting to show kids how to tie flies. And that was it. Kids were hooked, and he's been teaching them how to cast and tie flies ever since. We have a green team, and we work with one of the teachers, the one who will teach you environmental sciences if we have that class, working to take one of our courtyards, actually between the 7th and 6th grade primarily, anyway, hallways, and they're looking to transform that space into a native habitat that is sustainable. And they hope to actually harvest things from there that maybe we can share either in the school or in the community. Art Club has an asterisk by it because it's offered, but that goes through lots of materials. So our art teacher, so he doesn't burn through his own budget for his department, uses a little bit of money to supplement the materials available to kids. Rocket League, that is a video game league. We actually have one of the first middle school teams that have been competing in esports. Right now, our Rocket League kids actually have been practicing training, and some of them have gone through ranking tournaments, and they've played against schools from other states. Pretty cool thing to watch and see kids just excited, and the teamwork between the pairs that play together is pretty cool to watch. Our science club was resurrected this year as we came out of COVID, and 2 of our science teachers run that, and they made a connection with a NASA project. And this year our kids learned to fly drones to simulate what it would have been like to fly a lander that might leave or deposit a product and then leave that area and go on to something else. And the kids who were participating in that actually won an award for the work that they did. So pretty impressive on that front. Makers Club is one we've had in the past. We did not run this year, but it's one where kids literally do as it says. They make things, they create, and they design. We hope to resurrect with some of our retired community members from the teaching ranks. They have often run a homework club for us. And what they do is they were running it from school's end to about 5 o'clock. And it was a place to get homework help on any subject kids needed it on. It was also a chance to have conversation, have some social activity, and some actual physical movement and activity after school in a supervised manner. Now, there's a couple things that aren't up there that we had this year. One is an old-fashioned game club, and they play both board and card games. That was generated based on one of our teachers' interests, and they just opened their room after school, and some kids started showing up, and that has grown over time. We have a hiking club. That one was generated by students. They came up to me one day and said, "Mr. Harris, we need a hiking club." And I said, "Okay, how serious are you and how many are there?" And they had about 4 or 5 kids that they thought that would be a great idea. I asked our staff and found a staff member that would be interested in being their sponsor or their supervisor. And this year, that hiking club, not only have they done hikes in and around our community, they connected with the YMCA and did some preparation work during the winter months just so that they would be prepared. Another one, the Rocket League is a video game piece that's competitive. And we have some girls that are in our game design class, but the girls that Mr. Gentry know, who is our CTE teacher, the Rocket League's not really the speed that they like. They wanted to know if they could play a role-playing game. And so he introduced a role-playing game into a girls gamer group. And so that group now plays on a different day from Rocket League, and they're playing competitively also, just like the boys are, boys and girls in the Rocket League. The last club we have is, believe it or not, on a Friday afternoon, one of our staff members chooses to stay here, open up a room, and invite kids in for 2 hours. And they play Dungeons and Dragons. And the last time Miss Ward checked, that seems to be our quickest growing group. So we will continue to listen to kids, listen to our teachers, and try to offer more things for kids to benefit from the time with supervision and a chance to pursue or find new passions. Now, we have an ASB, and in the past, they've done a variety of things. One has been Spirit Days. We do those at least once a quarter, and they choose a theme, and they also choose a color. So a student could choose to dress up and say, we had a cowboy dress up day. I have my black hat that I'll wear on those days, but say Miss Ward doesn't have a black hat because she's too nice. She could choose to dress up. The kids might go, hey, it's a green day. So either cowboy dress up or wear green. And what they do is the students from the ASB leadership team go around and count who participated in that Spirit Day. And then there's a big bear that hangs at the end of the hall that's primarily 6th, 7th, or 8th grade hallways where the core classes are offered. And that's kind of a point of bragging for them. We've also done food drives in the past, and we're crossing our fingers that we're going to get back to more normalcy, and we'll have some after school activities where we have a day where we have Harvest Fest, Winter Fest, and a Spring Fling. And those are days where we do a little dance in our cafeteria, and then activities up and down the various halls and shared spaces for kids to participate in. And then this during COVID, we had a group of students who had an idea, and we let them fall through on the idea, and that is called Some Good News. They took the idea from something they'd seen on YouTube, and they started to write a little newspaper at about a once a month rate. And from there, one of the students went, hey, could we videotape this? So it has now turned into a video news broadcast where the kids put together only positives of things that are happening around campus and stuff that might interest the kids. That was generated by this year's team. We will see, as it says, what the new group suggests, what the new directions they take it. ASB means that it's student driven. So the advisor, and we're changing advisors next year, that new advisor with those new kids will try to decide on what it is they want to spend their time and energy on. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with that. Now, me, no facial hair here, I did there, and earlier this year I had even longer than that. Parents, the reason I put this slide up, pardon me, is the fact that I wanted you to know that primarily if you have an adult issue where you need some help understanding, making connection with any of our teachers or other staff, then primarily you're going to come to myself. If it's an issue where your child is struggling with their behavior or the behavior of somebody else, or there's a peer conflict, or there's somebody at school has had to say, hey, this is a yes and that's a no. Most of the time, that's Miss Ward that does that as kindly as possible. And she works together with you in partnership. It's middle school. We know this about our kids. This is a great place to make mistakes because we will do all our best to support families as you try to help grow your kids to the right direction. So know that we understand that part of ourselves. Here are some of the faces you might see in the office. Mrs. Stites, as I said, she is our main registrar, and she is the person, if you have a skyward reset, she's the lady you need to talk to. Right now, Ms. Lepisto, who goes by Miss Gina, is helping us out with attendance. She does have a different job, but she agreed to help us as that position was unfilled, and we're going to be posting that this summer and hope to find somebody who is a good replacement for that position. It might be Miss Gina herself. I don't know if she's decided to apply for that or not. Ms. Forshaw is working with ASB. She's primarily with the accounting thing. So if we have any swag or other things that we sell or need money to collect, particularly in 7th and 8th grade relative to sports, Mrs. Forshaw is the person they're going to see. Mrs. Holt is there, and she is a person who gets to know kids on a name-to-name basis, and she is roaming up and down the halls to make sure that those shared spaces are safe and everybody's needs are being taken care of during passing periods to hold people, make sure they keep the energy level where it needs to be as 500 kids move through the hallways, and also in class time period where sometimes kids need to step out of classrooms and might need some help. So she's out there to do that. Officer Resser is on there. He is our connection to the police department, and he definitely has served in the role you might think he does. But the primary reason we have Officer Resser here is he's here as a model to show kids that, frankly, our police officers in our community are people who are there to help. That's their primary interest. They're not there about primarily consequence. They're just there to try and assist kids. And Officer Resser is a model of that for our community. So we are grateful to have him as part of our team. He also works with the rest of the district, but we were sneaky. We put his office here at the middle school. So we sometimes get a little more time with him than other people do. The other folks, we got a counseling department. Two, you will know Mrs. Hastings is the nice lady who presented to the kids when they went to to the elementary schools. And she takes care of students traditionally in the first half of the alphabet. Mr. Erickson is working on the transition from grade 8 up to the high school, and he works with the second half of the alphabet. I say that because traditionally that's where they connect with, but these two human beings are quite different people in their manner and personality, not their knowledge and skill set, but if your kid connects with one of the others, they are welcome to ask questions of the person they are most comfortable with. Mrs. Coppin is a new position for us. She is working with the ESD, which is the Educational Service District, which supports the whole peninsula with different programs and ideas. And her job is really to make connections with kids who might be struggling. And if at all possible, she works with the kids and families to try and find the resources and the next best steps outside of school, potentially that would help alleviate or solve some of those problems. On the steps to becoming a Timberwolf, well, first part's pretty easy. This is where they did last week, and they went out to the elementary schools. And we're doing the second part today. That's an informational meeting where I'm going to ramble on for a bit longer and then give you a chance to ask questions at the end here. But the key piece is tomorrow. Mrs. Hastings, I believe, is the one who's planning on going back to the elementary schools and collecting the registration packets from your students, hopefully with your signature on it. The key for us and why we do this at this point it is about the classes, but we go through and try to figure out if we have the right people and the right number of sections for each kind of class. We have to figure out whether we need 2 band teachers, because every kid in the 6th grade wants band, or whether we can survive with just 1 band teacher. Same for the other classes. There are a few out there that are new, and we're not sure whether it's something kids are really going to want or whether it's not now, not this time. So that helps us with our staffing so that we have the right number and the right classes and the properly assigned teachers for those classes. Next step, though, is becoming has to do with Timberwolf Days. It's a point in time where you're going to pick up a paper schedule, although about a week before Timberwolf Days, at least, you'll be able to see an electronic one. So if you have access to Skyward already, you'll be able to see what your kid's thing is. I'm going to tell you, for me, I use a cell phone and I keep track of my own child on that. I keep the Skyward app up to date, and I'm able to look at what her schedule is and her grades on a regular basis, at least as they are posted in Skyward. So if you're somebody who has not yet downloaded that, I suggest it might be a valuable tool for you in the years to come. We'll have our students from leadership who know the school inside and out, and they'll be available to walk you and any members of the family around so you get to really feel where things are. I'd recommend on that particular day, you have time, walk the schedule. See where your child starts their day, and then where do they go through the day. So you know what order they're going to be in and approximately where they will be in the building. It's much easier on day 1 if you know where you're going at the end of 2nd period, not just which class, but whereabouts is that class. We'll also take pictures that day. If you're not able to join us because of whatever reason, we will have a makeup day for pictures, but most of us will get our pictures done that day. And as our 5th graders join us at the secondary level in 6th grade, they're going to check out a laptop that is going to be their responsibility and their opportunity to show that they're growing up, frankly. And that electronic device will be theirs to keep for as long as those remain in service. They may be checked in at the end of some years for cleaning or updating, but that will be your child's responsibility to take care of that device. Now, know that about this device and cell phones. They are tools. We know they can be used as toys and entertainment, but our teachers work hard to help our students learn how to use them as tools. And so, parents, students are not allowed to do what they want when they want on their laptops or their cell phones. The teacher is in charge of that learning space. So in the confines of the classroom, they get to decide who and when and what somebody's on a cell phone. If you really need to reach out to your kid, the cell phone's probably not the best thing during the course of a class. Feel free to call at the office if you want to speak to your child on their cell phone. We'd be happy to invite them up to the office and give them a private space to have a conversation with you. But we do the best we can to make sure that those electronics are used as tools and they don't disrupt classes. or disrupt the learning space so other kids have the choice to keep working or doing the learning that they're learning. But I will tell you that kids, myself, my own included, got earbuds to plug in some classes when they're writing or they're researching, the teachers do allow them to listen to what music they may have on their cell phone or on their laptop. So sometimes they do get to use just to support the environment. But it's, again, when teachers dictate now is a good time or now is not a good time. Now, for sixth graders, that's going to happen on the 29th of August. And school will be open at 1 o'clock. And we will remain open until 5. I think we're going to end up doing it in the cafeteria. So as you walk around the room on that day, if you'd like to come back at 5, between 5 and 5:30, myself and Ms. Ward will be in person. And we'll share with you all the updates we know about school at that point in time. We hope we're still not in any COVID protocols other than periodically having to check contact tracing. And we also know we're getting a new superintendent this summer, so perhaps she will have messages she wishes for us to share, or maybe she'll be present to share her own message on that particular evening. If you have a 7th or 8th grader as well, they are welcome to come on that day and we can get them their schedule. And obviously they probably know where the classes are, but they can get their pictures taken at that time as well. But if they don't want to come when the 6th graders are here, they're welcome to come the next day when we will invite all 7th and 8th graders to come on campus. Because we have a new superintendent this year, we'll hold a second informational meeting for folks. So if you're coming on day 2, because of the way your family may be organized with your time or with your kids, you're welcome to stay for that at that point. Now, this is part that was not there for your kids as a presentation from Ms. Hastings. And that's, I want you to know up front that we understand that it's our job to support you in your efforts to help your kid become all he or she can become. And we know that. We will listen to you. We want you to feel welcome to come to the school. Although, as I mentioned, we do lock it down during the day, but we would love to come and answer the door and invite you in to have a conversation if that's what you'd like to do. We encourage you, the quickest way when you're on a secondary schedule to reach out to a teacher and to get quick follow through is email. Most of our staff, not all, but most of our staff, their first initial and their last name combined with the @sequimschools.org is the best way to reach them. And most of them check their email multiple times during the day, beginning of the day, their planning period, and end of day at the very least. And they will try to make a connection with you and make sure that you are heard and you guys go about solving problems as need be. So there's a couple of things to talk about with middle school. We got some changes happening. I tell anybody who sits in my office for a long enough time period who doesn't come to middle school often that we probably have the 3 most dynamic years in a human being's life. We talk about puberty and the changes kids go through. Yes, there are hormonal changes going, and they are going to take growth spurts and all sorts of different things are going to happen to their bodies and minds at this age. They also are going to start to see themselves as individuals. There's a lot of psychological changes that happen in this time period. But there's a lot of transitioning to do from elementary school. The first one, as listed there, is we're not focused on the basic skills, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, decoding for reading, or how to print specific letters or words. We're starting to move into the content application of those basic skills. So that's a big piece for us. For many kids, it's a place where they start to learn to self-advocate about when they need help, when they don't understand something in a class, or they need help solving a problem outside of class. This is definitely a place where teachers aren't necessarily going to go down a list or an assignment and go, yep, that's good, turn it in. Your children will be asked to make their own assessment as to whether the quality is good enough and when they're complete. That's part of the learning that happens now in middle school. Also, the personal responsibility, it's tough. There's a lot of social, emotional challenges for individuals, challenges for peers, and challenges across peer groups. And so how your child conducts themselves in their actions and their reactions to the mistakes of others, frankly, is a big piece of the growing that happens at middle school. I will tell you that at some point in time in your 3 years, unfortunately, because of our own internal struggles as human beings, that your child is likely to hear some unkindness. And how he or she handles that and moves forward from that moment is a big piece of growing up they have to do while they're at middle school, if they haven't had to already at the elementary level. The other one is we're working in our wolf packs to kind of begin to understand, identify, and grow their leadership characteristics. We use a curriculum called Habitudes, and you can look it up online. If you would like further information about what the elements are for that one, feel free to email me at any time on that one. I will tell you they use images, video, and thought-provoking questions that most kids can connect with. Their first image or lesson that you start in year one has to do with an iceberg, and it presents that as a concept of about your character in general, and the fact that the part people see is the part that's above the water, and the part below is the completeness of the character. And sometimes that part of a person doesn't show until extreme or different stresses occur. So that's the beginning of that lesson, just to give you a sense of where that goes. The other piece that we're really working on ownership towards, and I understand people at Gray Wolf, maybe perhaps at Helen Haller too, have started to talk about being a kid at hope. And that means that we have 4 destinations that kids will be paying attention to as they grow into this secondary years, which is, where are you going? We're not all just going to school for our future career in education. While that is one destination, it's not the only one. The others, as you can see, are listed there. So things like hobbies and recreation is why our teachers work so hard to try and present some passions that they have and share those with other kids. So keep that going forward. The other one I'm going to tell you, we do have some traditional growing pains that do occur for kids. They don't have a teacher all day long who takes care of them in the same family sense that often occurs lovingly in an elementary school. While our teachers work really hard to get to know your kids as individual human beings and identify their strengths and help them recognize them too, they're going to have 6 different people. And those 6 different people definitely have varied demeanors and demands they will put on kids. So I do anticipate that your kid will have 1 or more teachers they absolutely love every second or minute of that person's class. And no, it's not difficult, even if it is, just because of the nature of that personality connection. But I hope that there's at least one of the teachers that's a struggle or difficult for your child, because they need to learn to work with and for different kinds of people. Not everybody gets to work with somebody who they have ultimate respect and passion for working for. So again, I said that middle school is a great place to try and practice. That's one of those pieces too. As you all probably remember, middle school is a very difficult time about self-acceptance and embracing your own self-image. So we do deal with, and our counselors deal with, a lot of that conversation as kids are thinking about themselves relative to others and trying to figure out where they fit in and recognize, you know what, who you are is okay. You don't have to be something or look or anything else different than who you are. We are also working on trying to recognize and expressing the value in seeing the differences in other people. One place that we try to do that is we have a pretty inclusive school. We have kids that when they were younger might have needed more one-to-one care or a smaller group care. Those kids are now ready to explore in classrooms, and sometimes their hurdles that they have to overcome in front of every other kid gives our kids an opportunity to step up and step in and help one of their peers who might have a different issue than themselves. And we hope that gives them an appreciation for the fact that all human beings are critical and important. Now, one piece that we work on in classes, and we have some teachers who are especially gifted at working with this, and that is, how do they cope with the different kinds of stresses now that they're in secondary school? As I said, there's definitely 6 different teachers they're working for, but there's also that dynamic of not their elementary school classroom, but they're going to be part of a class of about 170 to 180 human beings that will become their graduating class. And getting along in an amicable relationship with all of them is the target. So how do you handle that? And that puts different stresses on our kids. So they'll be working with them on that. And on that peer front, establishing boundaries and what's okay and what's not okay. Middle school is where a lot of patterns are set with those peers in particular. And if your child defines what their boundaries are and what they are or they're not interested in, peers will learn that quickly, and that carries on from middle school beyond our walls and our years. So help your kid identify what it is that they're okay with and they're not okay with, and that will carry on. The other is that how do they handle, well, feeling differently about people and starting to have increased levels of concern for some people compared to others. We do try to set some of those boundaries, and sometimes those topics do happen in our offices with our counselors or in our classes. And our seventh graders will be discussing some of those topics very much so in their health class in this coming year. The other is the last one I put on the list. Maybe I shouldn't have put it last, but I know it's been a challenge and it will continue to be for many kids, which is often our kids give their peers opinions and comments far more power than they should. And that's one of those minefields that I probably could talk for days on. But as parents, just be aware of that. That's part of the thing that happens in middle school, and help supporting your kid as they begin to recognize that their own opinion and the opinion of people who love them unconditionally is the most important. And they'll get through this time period. So with that, I finished my piece, and this is the way Mrs. Hastings finished up her piece. So I'm going to tag to Ms. Warden and say, so do we have questions we need to address?
We have a couple. Ms. Hastings answered a few and I answered a few, but there are a couple that parents did want.
Are any of those you'd want to express out loud for the parents who were listening and not just following the chat?
Yeah, no. The parent wants to know, and this would be good for the whole. How would you suggest assessing advanced math or ELA versus standard?
Okay. And did you give an answer to that one, or is that for me?
Nope, I'm leaving that one for you.
Oh, gee, thanks. To be honest, the conversation at this point is you could potentially ask your students' current teacher as to what they think, but really success in mathematics is attitude, effort of the individual. You're going to have some points of difficulties, and are you up for that? If your child is successfully multiplying, dividing, adding and subtracting, and knows the basic factual information with those, with their whole numbers, they can have success in the accelerated class. If they're still learning those basic factual information, that might be a challenge. So for sixth graders, that could be a point. For some people who have been identified as high cap, we automatically put them into the accelerated classes. The same could be applied to English. If your kid is a voracious reader, I think that part, from my perspective anyway, is a no-brainer. They probably belong in that accelerated ELA class. But if you have a writer or somebody who's really good at language, they don't have to be a reading machine. They could still be really successful in that. But a big piece as we move forward here is going to be the same thing that applies to kids as they get to the high school. Is your child up for that challenge? Will there be more work? I don't think that's the scenario here. Our teachers aren't looking for giving extra homework, but they are looking at more difficult or more intensive homework. So if they're up for that kind of challenge, I think that's a conversation worth having in every household.
Okay. And can parents come and visit during the lunch period?
As we come out of COVID, that might be a possibility. We've been for 2 years, we haven't seen any poor parents except in the parking lots and waving to them as they drop their kids off. I think that's one you definitely want to have a conversation with your kid in advance. Like I learned at one point, and I have an eighth grader who's going to be leaving here. So this middle school is really important to me that it works properly. But I got to tell you, there was a point where I wasn't invited to go into McDonald's with her and her friends anymore. There was a hint that I should stay in the car. I don't know when that's going to occur for you or if it will occur for you, but in terms of being on our campus, we're going to ask everybody to do the same information you would always do, like you would volunteer in a school. You are welcome to come here. If your child is struggling in classes, you want to see how they're conducting themselves, you can talk to a counselor, myself or Ms. Ward. That's another place parents could actually follow their child through their schedule if that's what you felt like you needed to do to better understand what was happening. So yeah, we're open to parents being on campus. Yay.
And we also, just on a side note, we do have parents that sometimes, depending on schedules, they work nights. So we have had parents that have come and picked their kids up, or maybe had lunch and they just want a little bit of private time, sit in the parking lot with their kid, and their kid comes back and checks in. So we're pretty flexible in trying to help give you that family time. We did address the cell phone policy, but Mr. Harris, I did want to add on one thing is that with this age group, we do sometimes see a challenge, and sometimes kids do, after multiple teacher requests, maybe don't put their cell phone away. We just have a policy that the teacher may just ask to take up the cell phone for the period, put it on the desk, nobody's touching it. If the student is really struggling, we do also, we have the option of having them bring it up to the office, and we'll hold it till the end of the school day. We lock those up, and then they'll get it back at the end of the day, just to kind of help them learn how to navigate using cell phones properly at school. I did address the passing period. And then there was one last question. Can sixth graders participate in sports?
As of right now, no. Each year is a conversation with the athletic directors in our league as to whether they have the capacity to have sixth graders out there. Obviously, there are some sports where they can't be on the same team because it just sheer size alone makes it untenable. Football being the one that occurs to me, that definitely there's a clear distinction between my 6'2", pushing 200 pounds eighth grader and my 4'10", barely 75-pound sixth grader. Those are two different human beings that cannot be on the same team. And we only have one football team, one coach. So for the moment, that's a component where football, I'm going to tell you right now, is not a possibility. But our athletic director, Mr. Sharp, he definitely has conversations each time around to see if anybody has the capacity to have sixth grade participation. That depends on quantity of kids in the district or playing the sport. So we will address it every year, but as of right now, I don't think we did this year. So we'll move forward to see what we have for next year.
Okay, guys, is there any more last questions? Right now, I'm seeing none. I do have one more. Is the registration packet available online? I live out of the area, but we are moving to Sequim in the summer. I did enroll online for the school district.
You can just send myself or Ms. Ward, and she's at cward@sequimschools.org, and we will make sure you get a copy electronically.
Okay, anything else, guys? No, that looks like it's it, Mr. Harris.
All right, well, thank you very much, and take care. If you have any further questions, feel free to email or call either one of us, and we'll be happy to do our best to try and answer those questions. Other than that, I'm going to end our slideshow. You're stuck looking at the two of us. And everybody have a great night.
Oh, they did ask, where will they find this when it's over? So if anybody else needs it.
Yeah, as soon as it's done processing, I will have the person from the district office get it all packaged together so it can be reviewed. And then they will put a link in our Facebook page and probably on the district Facebook page in order to access it. Can't wait for the next batch of sixth graders.
I know,
Always exciting.
Our sixth graders are already getting so big, so it's
exciting
to see the small ones.
Well, with COVID this fall, it was a little weird, so I felt like we were deprived a little bit.
Definitely. Fresh start next year will be great.
And just know we're going to keep it on until we see those participants drop or we reach 7 o'clock. One of the two of them. So if a question pops in your head, we're still here. We'll be happy to answer it.